Welcome once again. I want to start by acknowledging the presence of several members of the Pulitzer Prize Board and two former prize administrators. As I call your name, please stand and remain standing until I have named you all. And please hold your applause till the end of the list. We have a lot of board members here today. The current and immediate past members of the board are Danielle Allen, Randall Beck, Robert Blau, Lee Bollinger, Steve Cole, Gail Collins, John Daniszewski, Joyce Daly, Steve Engelberg, Paul Gigot, Chiara Alegria Udis, Kevin Ann Willey, and also a former dean and former member of the board, Tom Goldstein. Please give these dedicated, let me also introduce Seymour Topping, and Sig Gisler. Each year, the Pulitzer Prize Board awards fellowships to 5 new graduates of the Graduate School of Journalism here at Columbia. 4 of these allow the recipients to travel abroad, study, and report. 1 goes to a graduate who wishes to pursue a career as a cultural critic. All 5 winners are in the audience today, and I'd like them to stand as I call their names. Rosalind Zoe Adams, Jasper Rishin, Gabrielle Bruni, Jessica Usman, Cassie Bassler. Congratulations and thank you for coming today. "20 years ago, I was a Pulitzer juror in the commentary category. Being a slow reader and a nervous Nellie, I came in early the second morning to get a head start. Seymour Topping, had placed our jury in a dimly lit closet in the Pulitzer building. I switched on the lights that morning, and for the first time, I noticed bookshelves all around this room with books from one end to the other. They were Pulitzer Prize-winning novels and poetry books going back to the beginning. For 15 minutes, I pulled books by Frost and Faulkner and Wharton and John Steinbeck and Gwendolyn Brooks and Harper Lee from the shelves and reverently opened the covers. Some of them were signed. We gather here to honor those of you who today join Frost and Wharton and Steinbeck, Jhumpa Lahiri and Toni Morrison, and Robert Caro, Studs Terkel, Wynton Marsalis, and Eugene O'Neill, not to mention Ellen Goodman, Mary McGrory and Cynthia Tucker, Ernie Pyle, William Safire, and Isabel Wilkerson, Madeline Blaze, Edna Buchanan, and Michael Dusil as winners of the Pulitzer Prize. Congratulations to you. Now please allow me to introduce a journalist whose name is also on this honor roll. He is Paul Gigot, the chair of the Pulitzer Prize Board. Paul took me out to breakfast a couple weeks ago to talk about the year ahead. Over coffee, he told me how he got into journalism. Shortly after graduating from Dartmouth College in 1977, like a lot of us, he papered the country with his resume. One newspaper that gave him an interview was the Concord Monitor in New Hampshire's capital. But no call came from Concord. I'm not a fan of alternative history. What if the South won the Civil War? What if Gore carried Florida? But this story about Paul made me think about what might have happened if he had graduated from Dartmouth in 1978. By then, I was running the newsroom at the Concord Monitor, and surely, considering the paper's reputation for a liberal slant, I'd have been in the market for a reporter with Paul's views and his impressive education. And had I hired him, no doubt we'd have arranged for him to cover Ronald Reagan's New Hampshire primary campaign. We missed out, and he missed out. He hasn't missed much else. After the Monitor passed on him, William F. Buckley hired him at National Review. Now Paul is the editor of the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal, where he began work in 1980. He has been based in Hong Kong as both the Journal Asia correspondent and the first editor of the editorial pages of the Asian Wall Street Journal. He was later assigned to Washington, and his Potomac Watch column won the 2000 Pulitzer Prize for commentary. He took over the Journal's editorial pages in 2001, is responsible for the editorials, the op-ed articles, arts criticism, and book reviews. He directs the editorial pages of the Journal's Asian and European editions and the opinionjournal.com website. He is the host of the weekly half-hour news program, The Journal Editorial Report, on the Fox News Channel. He is a Journal vice president. Paul joined the Pulitzer Board in 2007. His colleagues elected him chair of the board just this past April. It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce Paul Gigot.
Thank you, Mike. Very generous introduction. I wish you would have hired me. That would have been fun. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, President Bollinger, colleagues at the Journal and elsewhere, and I see some competitors out there. Welcome to all of you, especially to all you winners. Let me add my note of congratulations. It's a great day for you. A great day for all of us. It really is a privilege to be here as the board chairman. And in case you're wondering how you get to be board chairman, the answer is one word: longevity. If you are on the board long enough, which means 3 terms of 3 years each, in your 9th year, they automatically make you chairman for your sins. And then you get to serve for 1 year. You hold the position for 1 year, and poof, you then vanish from the board, never to judge again. So this year is my swan song. This is a special occasion for all of you, of course, but also for the Pulitzer Prizes, because believe it or not, this is the 99th year that the prizes have been awarded. The first awards were in 1917, and next year is our centennial year. So led by Mike Pride, who was a former board chairman, and his able staff, the board is planning to celebrate in many ways and places around the country. And we will be offering ways in which all of you, we hope, will join us in finding ways that you can recognize your own work and the Pulitzer work in your regions and areas, because we really want to make this a grassroots national celebration. So stay tuned for announcements, and forgive me that public service announcement here this morning. So this year's winners, all of you are joining the last class of the first Pulitzer century. And it has become a grand tradition. In that first year, 1917, the Pulitzers did not award a prize for public service, did not award a prize for fiction, but we did award a prize for history, biography, reporting, and dear to my heart, editorial writing. Now, that first editorial writing prize was for an editorial in the New York Tribune on the sinking of the Lusitania, believe it or not. You will not be surprised to learn that the Tribune editors came down firmly against the sinking of the Libertarian. And I've read the editorial. They came down really, really hard on the Germans. So editorial writing hasn't changed all that much in 100 years. As Bill Safire used to say, We still walk onto the battlefield after the fighting is over, and we shoot the wounded. Now, Mike mentioned some of the winners, and I hope you see you have the Pulitzer list of winners in your seat, and I hope you'll take a few moments after you take it home and look through some of the winners. Mike mentioned the winners in the arts categories, and I won't repeat those names, and he mentioned some of the famous names in the journalism categories, but when I browse through, you see names like Edna Buchanan, Bill Raspberry, Paul Greenberg, Stan Penn, Richard Ben Kramer, Carlos Romulo, Susan Schmidt. You may not recognize those names instantly or their work, but I recommend you look up what they won for and what they did and who they were, and I think you'll be impressed. And now all of you can say that you joined the ranks. In thinking about what to say today, I began to reflect on why are the Pulitzer Prizes, why do they continue to have such a large cultural resonance? We all know there's no shortage of prizes in journalism. I'd say only the acting profession may hand out as many awards as we journalists do to one another. But no journalism award, in my experience, is celebrated or recognized like the Pulitzers. And as you winners this year may have discovered, this one even impresses your mom. So why is that? Well, one reason I think is the focus on excellence that Joseph Pulitzer established nearly 100 years ago. He wrote in his will that, quote, "I am deeply interested in the progress and elevation of journalism, regarding it as a noble profession and of unequal importance for its influence upon the minds and morals of the people." I'll have more to say about that morals point in a minute. But at least to my ear, Pulitzer's language strikes me as a tad Victorian and a little too self-important. Some of our readers certainly would prefer to think of journalists the way Lord Beaverbrook did. He was another media mogul of the Pulitzer era, and he was once asked if his reporters had to be intelligent. He thought about that for a few seconds and replied, "No, all I require is shorthand, typing, and a certain low rat-like cunning." Now, I think most of us operate most of the time somewhere between Pulitzer's aspiration and Beaverbrook's cynicism. But the virtue of the prizes is that they celebrate those instances when the work really does meet Pulitzer's aspiration. When the board deliberates over your work in 2 days in April, we do so looking to find and reward excellent work. The playwright Alan Bennett has a character in his play 40 Years On who was asked if his standards are out of date. And he replies, "Well, of course, standards are always out of date. That's why they're called standards." The Pulitzers have tried to hold to standards of quality that some might consider out of date, but I think with the obvious and notorious exception of a couple of mistakes, we have stuck to and that have enhanced the value of the prizes over time and what gives them that resonance. Now, I can also tell you, without giving away too many secrets, that to my dismay, my definition of excellence is not always shared by my board colleagues. We have a collegial board, but that doesn't mean we don't often disagree, and passionately so. On occasion, I have been outvoted 14-1 or 15-1. I can't tell you which categories there were, but perhaps you can guess. But I have to say those are some of my favorite votes, if not some of my favorite outcomes. But that robust debate we have on the board is, I think, another feature of how we work, and also very important as we're determining what satisfies the standard of high quality and excellence. Another reason I think the Pulitzers retain their resonance is that at their best, they've resisted the temptation to become hostage to orthodoxy. By that I mean in particular hostage to a political, intellectual, or ideological orthodoxy. One of the Wall Street Journal's great editors, Robert Bartley, a Pulitzer winner himself, liked to tell those of us who started to work for him a story about the Johnstown flood of 1889. Johnstown, Pennsylvania at the time was a booming commercial hub at the confluence of the rivers and canals that really served as the backbone of transportation in the country at the time. And on May 31st, 1889, a dam broke and 2,200 people died. Legend has it that a reporter who was sent to cover the flood wired back a report with the lead, "God looked out on Johnstown today and wept," to which his editor wired back, "Forget flood, interview God." Now, Bob told that story because it showed that the essential purpose of journalism is to be open to the news as we find it. Our job is not to look only for what we expect to find. It is to be open to finding the unexpected, to recognizing that consensus and conformity can sometimes be the enemy of news, the enemy of artistic discovery. And this is the kind of journalism and art that the Pulitzers at their best attempt to recognize. The prizes are not intended to reward any single point of view. They should not, and I hope they never do, enforce any single view on the controversies of the day. In my years on the board, we have rewarded investigations that expose corruption in government, but also in business. We have rewarded foreign reporting about American successes abroad, but also about American failures abroad. We have rewarded conservative as well as liberal commentary, and I hope it will always be so. This enhances the credibility of the prizes because it demonstrates that they are rewarded for excellence wherever it is found, not merely reinforcing the views or reputations of a particular cultural or journalistic elite. I think this is especially important these days when the polarization of our politics and media too often lead to the denigration of alternative views, or even the refusal to acknowledge that facts can sometimes be read in different ways. Or when we are told that certain views cannot be expressed at all because they might offend. Orthodoxy is necessary in religion, but it's dangerous in journalism because I think it can lead us to miss the real story, like that possible interview with God in Johnstown. All of which is to say that if Joseph Pulitzer were here today, I think he would conclude that he had succeeded in at least half of what he intended 100 years ago. If he could read your work, what we read when we were deliberating over your work, I think he would conclude that he has elevated journalism and the arts. He did succeed in promoting excellence. That at least is one lesson I take away from 8 years of having read so much great work. Which brings me back to Joseph Pulitzer's other ambition, which was to raise the morals of the people. Here, I'm afraid Mr. Pulitzer has been less successful. Human nature has not been repealed, alas. After 8 years of reading exposés on political corruption, corporate shenanigans, and so much human folly, I can tell you that there are at least as many crooks, scallywags, and scoundrels today as there were in 1917. Now, scratch that, there are more. So you can all leave lunch today taking great pride in the achievement that we on the board take pride in honoring today, your achievement. But you can also leave knowing that when you return home, you will return to a target-rich environment. So thank you all very much, and now Mike Pride is going to come back and introduce Lee Bollinger. Thank you very much.